Hey,
He's coming through. Hey, Chris, how are you?
I'm pretty good. How are you?
I'm very well indeed. How's your day been? How's your weekend been?
It's been pretty chill. Like I haven't really done a whole lot. I've been like binging old reality TV shows. So
Fantastic,
yeah,
fantastic.
it's what dreams are made of.
Absolutely, living the dream, right?
Right.
So thanks very much for coming along. I mean, we've not really known each other that long,
Hey,
but I
that's okay.
appreciate
I'm happy to meet you. I'm really excited to, whenever I like see other cool teachers on Instagram, I'm really happy to like follow and see what they're doing. And I actually learn a lot from the stuff that other teachers, including you,
Yeah,
post. So I'm really happy to meet you and talk to you, and I'm really happy that my followers can do the same.
absolutely, excellent stuff, excellent stuff. Do you want to introduce yourself to everyone that's here? Maybe a few people don't know you, Chris. Do you want
Sure,
to say
yeah.
hello? Do you want to say hello to everyone?
Of course, yeah. Hey everyone, my name is Chris, and I am a native English speaker from the United States. I live in a place called Nashville, Tennessee,
Wow,
in
fantastic.
in like the southeast of the United States, and I've been teaching English for about 4 years,
Uh-huh.
and I'm a total nerd for like grammar and pronunciation stuff. I get excited when I learn new words and idioms. I love
Really?
all that stuff. Yeah. hmm
Fantastic. How long have you had your Instagram page, Chris?
I think a couple of years now, honestly. Like I started out and I was like just like kind of seeing if I wanted to do anything with it. But then I started meeting like other teachers and like students, the people that are like regularly active on my page and everything. Hey Anna, hey everyone. Yep, I see
Hey.
people saying hi.
Is this yours, is it?
Yeah, but yeah, just a couple of years. I think you've only had yours for like 6 months, right?
I have, Chris, yeah. Well, less than, I actually started it a few months, well, maybe about a year ago, I think, but I did nothing with it. And because
hmm
I lost all touch with social media. And then
hmm
I started it again about 3 months ago. I had a bit of inspiration, and
hmm
it's just kind of kept rolling and rolling and rolling.
hmm
So it's been up for about two months, 2.5 months now, properly. Doing
hmm
constant videos. I'm useless. I'm absolutely useless at design.
Well, I
For
don't
the
know.
images on Instagram.
It looks like you're
The
doing a
vid-
pretty good job.
oh no, I'm totally. If I look at a color, I say it's blue, and it could be any color. I've just got no
Okay,
design
I
aspects
see.
at all. This is why I like doing the videos. I enjoy doing the videos.
Well, they look very like aesthetically pleasing. You've got like your what do they call that? The your watermark in the middle so nobody can steal your stuff, and like you have your picture and everything. I think it looks great. I think you're doing a great job.
Yeah. It actually takes me less time to do a video than it does an image, so I stick to the videos. I actually
Okay.
use the videos from um, my day-to-day classes. I pick up the points from there and I roll it out in the videos. So yeah.
hmm
So are you teaching face to face, Chris? Are you doing classes over in Nashville? I love
You
that
know,
name, Nashville. It just
you
conjures up
like
so music and everything.
Oh yeah, yeah, they
Nashville.
call it Music City. Yep, everybody here has like their normal job and then they have their Nashville job where they're some kind of musician. Except for
Really?
me, of course. I am not talented with music at all, not even a little bit. But when it comes to classes, I only have one in-person
Uh-huh.
class, and it's just a one-on-one thing that we do at a cafe. But
Yeah, yeah.
everything else that I do is like totally online.
Online. I mean, it must be difficult in the States because, I don't know, is there a lot of kind of non-native speakers where you are that are looking
Um,
to learn English face to face?
yeah, there's a huge market, especially here in Nashville. Like there are so many immigrants that come from all over the place. We have
Oh,
like a
really?
huge We have a really big like Hispanic community here. There are a ton of, there are like a lot of refugees that come here from a bunch of different countries.
All right.
We have a lot of Kurdish people. We have a lot of Persians.
Wow.
Yeah, there's people from everywhere here. It depends on what part of the city you're in. You can almost immerse yourself in a totally different culture. So
Wow,
I think it's pretty good.
fantastic, fantastic. I've been to a few countries, but I've never actually visited the States, you know, never,
Oh,
never, never.
you
And I
should
think
come visit.
yeah, I would like to, you know, I think it's kind of a world into itself, you know, the
Mm-hmm.
States, you know. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I don't think you need to travel abroad to get, you know, different cultures in the States, you know.
Yeah, that is a really good point. A lot of my students will ask me like, "What's it like in the United States?" And I'm like, "That is a giant question." Like, it's a pretty big place. I almost can't even tell you what it's like in Nashville. Like, it's a really big place with a bunch of different everything, different people, different
Yeah,
cultures, different food. Um,
yeah.
but yeah, I like it here. I love Nashville a lot. We just need a beach. I wish we had a beach.
Really, yeah. Is it a big city? I don't know. I don't know anything about it at all.
Um, it's growing. It's one of the fastest, but you know, that's what every city in the United States says. They're always like,
Yeah,
it's one of the biggest or one of the fastest growing cities in the United States. It was in the top five, blah 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 blah. But we've got like, I don't know, it's not really that big when I compare it to like other metropolises like New York City or something like that. It's definitely much smaller than
Hmm.
that. But if you're coming from a place, like I was raised in like kind of a small city in the South called Birmingham, Alabama.
All
Coming
right, yeah.
here from
Uh-huh.
coming here from there, it was like, oh my God, wow, this place is huge. But then when I went to New York, I was like, oh my God, I could never live in a place like New York City. I would never, like
Is it
absolutely
just
not.
crazy, is it? Yeah.
It's just
It's
too
like
big.
where I live in Bangkok, you know, I think the population's 10 million. And
Oh no.
where I come from in Scotland, the whole country is the population of 5 million, you know.
Oh wow.
So everything's condensed into this kind of, you know, small
Hmm.
space, you know. It's crazy, you know, crazy. They've got
Wow.
something like 250,000 taxis in Bangkok, which is unbelievable,
Wow.
you know. It's more than cars in the whole of Scotland, I think, you
Hmm.
know.
Hmm. I've been to Bangkok once. I think it was, yeah, it was actually 10 years ago. Almost my
Oh,
10-year
really?
anniversary of going there. I remember how when I got off the plane, I was just inundated with humidity. Oh my God. It was so humid and I was like having trouble breathing and
Yeah.
uh gosh, that was pretty, and it was just pretty crowded, just a whole rainbow of smells and stuff.
Uh-huh.
And oh man, it was crazy, but it was fun shopping there. I can definitely tell
Oh,
you that.
I think that's Bangkok people's favorite pastime is going to the shopping malls. I think you know. Uh,
They're so huge there. Oh my gosh, they're giant.
my mum and dad came over here last year, and took them to the shopping malls, and they're just looking up. You know, where
Hmm.
does this end? You know.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
many floors. Did they go to
yeah.
what is it called? The Paragon? Is that what it's
Siam
called?
Paragon, yeah, Siam
Hmm.
Paragon. That's right. Yeah, that's the what we call the high soul, the high society kind of
Oh, uh-huh.
shopping mall. You know, where all the
Hmm.
designers are and everything. You know. So
Hmm.
yeah.
I
So yeah.
remember
So
going there and I thought that you could haggle with people everywhere. And I
uh-huh.
went into this lady's shop and I was like, how much for this shirt? And she told me, I don't know, she said like 50 baht or something, I don't know. And I was like, I'll give you 15. And then and and I was like trying to like assert myself as like a tourist that you don't want to mess with, and she's like, no, it's 50.
50.
And I was like, no, I'm not gonna pay. And then she started screaming at me, and I was like,
Really?
okay, okay,
My
fine.
goodness.
Fine, I'll pay whatever you want.
$2,
Oh my
50
God.
baht, $2, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I was like trying to like, gosh, so there's so much like cheap stuff there, and I brought
Mm.
back a ton of knockoffs, so many knockoffs that came home. I got my mom a purse, and I think instead of Coach, it said Couch or something. Like, I wasn't paying attention.
Yeah,
Oh my God.
Bangkok's a city of kind of contrast. You know, there's the cheap stuff like that, and then there's the really expensive stuff
Hmm.
next door. You know, and
Hmm.
they're building a kind of sky train all around the city just now. So we've got
Mm.
the lower half of the city, and then we're going to have the upper half of the city. You know,
Oh
there's just
wow.
so much contrasts around the
Hmm.
city. You know.
Hmm.
So yeah, so it's good fun. You know, good fun. So I've been here 10 years now. So probably arrived here just as you were leaving. You know.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
Yeah. I remember I came here 1996, I think, 1997, I think.
Hmm.
And I always say to myself that I would come back and live in Bangkok. And then I forgot all about it. And then
Hmm.
10 years after that, I think, something like that, you know, I ended up here again, you know, without even thinking about it, you know. Something
That's
was
so neat.
obviously my subconscious mind to come and live
Hmm.
out here, you
Hmm.
know. So you do a lot of online teaching?
Yeah, I think I've done probably, let's see, I must be approaching like my 2000th class or something that I've taught,
Wow.
or maybe, I don't know. So I use a platform called Verbling to teach,
Verbling. All right. Uh-huh. What's
and
that? I've
it's
never heard of that.
it's kind of like, have you heard of italki? Italki is a little
Yeah, I've
bit
heard
more
of
popular.
italki. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah,
So I
yeah.
used to
Uh-huh.
use italki. Basically they're the same thing, but I
Mm-hmm.
like Verbling up a lot better just because of like, I don't know, it's kind of like Android versus iPhone or
Mm-hmm.
Verbling versus italki. I just like Verbling a lot better because of
All
their
right. Okay.
formatting and everything. But yeah, I use
Okay.
Verbling to like get my students, and sometimes I get requests on Instagram.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I do a
Where
lot of like
where
online stuff.
uh-huh. Where's your students come from?
Most of them lately have been Russian, Brazilian,
Wow.
and
Uh-huh.
Spanish.
Wow.
Yeah,
Spanish as
just
well.
yeah, I don't know
Wow.
why. Like, I talked to some other teachers and they have like a completely different demographic, but I don't
Yeah.
know. I always ask my Russian like, why are all these Russians picking me? I don't get it. Like, I love them, of course, but I just don't understand. And they're like, yeah, we like your pronunciation and this and that. And I'm like, okay, yeah, I'll take it. Whatever.
Do you get a lot of students wanting to have the American accent?
Um, actually, most of my students, like, it's not like they want to be like undetectable among Americans, but they do
Uh-huh.
prefer the American accent over the British accent or other
Uh-huh.
accents out there. But usually they don't tell me like I want a class where I want to sound exactly like this person or something like that. Because
Yeah.
usually if they do that, I let them know like, hey, you probably need a reality check. I don't know if that's gonna happen.
Uh-huh.
But
Uh-huh. What do you say to them that want the accent? Because I get a lot of students or a lot of comments and students questions about I want to speak with the British accent or I want to speak with the American accent. And I try and say to students, you know, to get an accent, the most important thing really is kind of having fluency, if you like,
hmm.
first of all, you know. If you can become
Hmm.
fluent, then kind of, you know, the accent kind of follows on from that, if you like. You know, that's the way I kind of see it, you know. Is that
Hmm.
similar to yourself?
Well, usually when I like I think it was like maybe a year and a half ago, I had a student from Spain
Uh-huh.
who like our first class, he was like, "All right, listen, Chris, I want to be able to go to I think he was going to like what was it? Washington. or something, Washington State.
Uh-huh.
And he was like, I want to be there and I don't want anyone to know that I'm from Spain.
All right. Uh-huh.
And I was like, this is very unrealistic. I just let him know
Uh-huh.
immediately. I was like, that's probably not going to happen anytime soon. And I
Yeah.
told him, and I usually tell my students, like, we can work on little things, but a lot of it, like, you really have to be super dedicated to, like, recognizing these, like, patterns in speech and the connected speech, the differences between, like, the sounds in your language and the sounds in our language.
Yeah.
And I just let him know, like, hey, I can help you with, like, things here and there, but if you want to like literally like do some accent reduction, like the things that actors do before they perform a certain role or something, it's something
Uh-huh.
that you have to do every day and you have to spend a lot of time. It's not just something that you can do like, oh, you know what? I'm just going to have a British accent now. Like I can't even do that and I speak English as a native language, and it's hard for me to do a British accent. I think it's like when I try to do a British accent, I feel like it
Come
sounds
on.
offensive.
Come on.
It's
Let's hear it. Let's hear it. Come on.
I don't okay. So when I try a British accent, this is what it sounds like, and I think eventually it starts sounding a bit Australian, and I don't know. I can't differentiate the two just because I usually don't listen or watch British television shows or listen to. See, I'm like going from like British to Australian back to American, and it's like,
It's difficult. If I close my eyes here, I could just imagine, right? You know.
right, some very very confused person, right?
Yeah. I think the Americans' accent, your vowels are very, very long, aren't they, compared to the British one?
I
Like
think so. Yeah.
yeah, we would say kind of like dog, but you would kind of say dog or something like
Yeah.
that, you know,
Exactly.
kind of
Yeah.
blang, you know.
Uh huh. Yeah.
So that's the kind of stresses that you need to have if you want the
Mm-hmm.
accent, right? You know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then I always tell my students that there are like a bunch of accents within the United States.
Oh
I think
yeah, of course.
a lot of people pick me because I have like kind of a centralized sounding accent, but I
All
am
right.
originally from the South, so when I get angry or excited, that's when like you'll start hearing my Southern twang. My husband makes fun of me
Twang.
all the time for it. Oh my gosh, it's so funny.
Yeah, when I haven't spoken to my brother for maybe a month or 2 months, it takes me a couple of seconds to get into his accent again.
Hmm.
I think in the UK, because it's such a small area, um, if you travel maybe 60 kilometers any direction, the accent really kind of changes quite noticeably in some areas. If
Hmm.
I travel maybe 70 kilometers north or 70 miles north, then the accent becomes really like that, it's
Oh
really
gosh.
what.
I would know. Sometimes my students will send me videos of like different accents, whether it's like an Indian accent or an Irish accent or a Scottish or British or something like that. And they're like, "Listen, I want you to listen to this." And I'll listen. I'm like, what are they saying?" And they're like, "Exactly. What are they saying? I don't know either." And I'm like, "I'm sorry. Good luck."
Yeah, I know. What do you say to students? I get a lot of questions from students about I don't have a native speaker to practice with. I don't know. Do you get
Oh.
that quite a
Mhm.
lot?
Um, every once in a while, I do get students that tell me that, and I tell them like, you have to. You've got to use the internet, honestly.
Mm,
Um, like, there's so many applications and websites out there that are totally dedicated to the exchange of languages and culture. Um,
hmm
like, like I don't know, there's mylanguageexchange.com or there's italki, like we were talking about earlier.
Uh-huh.
There's
Uh-huh.
couchsurfing, meetup.com, where
Uh-huh.
you can either chat with a person online or arrange a meeting in person if somebody is visiting your country or something like that.
All right, that's a good idea, actually, isn't it?
Or you can schedule a class. I think that a lot of people just think that a native speaker will just magically appear if they pray about it or something. And I'm just like, well, you need to like go out there and like find the person so that you can practice. Like if I wanted to learn another language, I wouldn't just be like, well, I'm just gonna wait here by the door and hope that somebody knocks.
Do you speak any other languages, Chris?
I speak Spanish. I understand Portuguese. I can speak like a little Portuguese. My Portuguese listening is a lot better than my speaking. Of course, I feel like that's the case for a lot of different people. But I've studied Farsi before, but I have since forgotten like pretty much everything. Whenever I hear it or whenever I see it written, it's like deja vu. It's like trying to remember a dream from a couple of days ago or something. I studied French in college and almost failed that class because I was studying Farsi at the time, and I was also taking Spanish classes, and so I was like juggling everything, and I basically just dropped all. And then now I'm very passively studying Russian.
I saw that on your page. Yeah, Russian. Yeah, is that because you have a few Russian students?
It's for a couple of reasons. So yes, I do have a lot of Russian students, and it's not that I don't speak any other languages in my classes. I always keep it 100% English. But I appreciate being able to know the kind of patterns that they have in their language so I can predict what we need to work on the most. And I honestly just need to know how it feels for my student. Like if I give them like 5 pages of homework, I need to ask myself, would I be able to do 5 pages of homework, or do I need to just be realistic? Somebody says, are you studying Farsi? I'm not studying Farsi right now. I studied it in the past. Maybe sometime in the future I'll do it again, but not right now.
You should be able to pick it up quite easily again. I mean, I studied French, at school, and I kept it going for a few years, and then I forgot it. But then I visited Paris, and within a day, it kind of came back, and I was conversing with it again, But then
wow, that's awesome. That is really cool. I always tell people that I know enough French to cause problems for myself. So
get yourself into problems, right?
Yeah, it'd probably be better for me to just get out a translator or something. I don't know.
Exactly. What do you say to students who, you're talking there about students who, to meet up with an native English speaker? What happens if they don't have the confidence to do it? What do you say?
Honestly, I just tell them like, hey, you have to get over that. Like, you can.
How do you get over it though?
I think that you should find a person that you vibe with. Everybody has like I have students that started out extremely like really, really nervous. Like they didn't even really want to schedule a class with me. Actually, I'm going to have a class with one of them today. And later on, like we started, I was just like, hey, so like honestly, like what do you like to do? And then they tell me, oh, I like watching this and I like playing this game. And I'm like, oh, cool, I like that too. Like I would suggest to find somebody that you're like on the same wavelength with, somebody that you can relate to, somebody that you feel comfortable with, because there are plenty of different people out there and different kinds of people. And honestly, I don't get along with everybody. There are a lot of people who are like, oh, okay, so you just teach everybody, right? And I'm like, well, honestly, if I don't feel like I vibe with them, right, I'm like, hey, I don't know, maybe you should probably consider a different person, because it doesn't seem like it's working or something. I think that you should find somebody that you are.
How do you make the first move, though? How do you make the first move? because I know from, I mean, I've visited a few countries. I've lived in 10 countries around the world, you know, and the same thing keeps coming up, that they're scared to approach or to make the first contact with a kind of native speaker. It's really, you know, it's really difficult for them. You know, I've seen it in Thailand where, you know, you go to ask someone something and their face turns red and they run in the opposite direction.
Oh
You know?
no. Oh, that's so sad.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
You know?
So honestly, I do this in the United States with other English speakers. I feel that way. I just feel like socially anxious, like, oh my gosh, I want to talk to that person, but they're probably too busy or too cool to talk to or something like that. And I just find some kind of way to break the ice. And by that, I mean like just, I don't know, what I usually do is I compliment the other person. Because basically,
You
I feel like
compliment them.
everybody, yeah, I feel like, so like for
what do you mean
example,
you compliment them?
if I saw a person, like let's say that there is a Russian in Nashville and we're both at a restaurant or something and they're sitting or standing next to me, I would say, oh wow, I really like that shirt. Where did you get it? And then
All
they,
right.
I mean, I feel like that kind of like breaks down a little bit of a barrier because everybody likes talking about themselves or something that they like. If they have this shirt, they probably don't hate it that much. They're going to talk about it. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, I think you can, if you compliment that person and if you're genuinely just kind to that other person, I mean, I think it's fun to do. Everybody, I think that causing other people to smile helps you to smile too, and that
Good point,
can
actually. Good
that
point,
can
actually. I
help a
like
little,
it.
I think.
Yeah. Funny, I lived in China for a while, and I lived in the northeast of China, you know, and my bedroom overlooked North Korea. It was that north,
Wow.
you know. And every time I walked down the street, the Chinese, the people that I met would come up to me and make the first move and start speaking to me, you know. And I felt a bit like a superstar at the beginning, you know, because you couldn't walk for so many people wanting to speak to you. And it
Wow.
totally took me by surprise, you know, them making the first move to speak. You know, it was really refreshing to kind of see, you know. They're very, very outgoing people, really outgoing, you know.
That is awesome. That's really cool. I don't know how. So how did that get old fast, or did you like always like, oh, okay, hi, hello, everyone, I'll sign your autograph and speak English with you or something?
Well, actually, the second time that I went with my mum and my uncle and my auntie, and we were in Tiananmen Square in that area in Beijing, and everywhere they went, people were coming up to my mum and ignoring me, and they were saying to my mum, "Can I take a photograph with you?" You know, there were photographs all over the place. My mum was kind of, you know, I'm the superstar today, you know.
Oh, that must have been a
Yeah.
self-esteem builder.
Yeah, it was for her, you know. But when I lived there the first time, and I thought every time I walked down the street, I actually really liked it, you know. I really enjoyed it. There wasn't a time that I thought, oh God, stop, I need to move, you know, because you're living in a foreign country and everything's kind of exciting, you know. I was only there for 6 months, I think it was, so it was quite exciting, you know. I didn't get bored of it at all. And the same thing when I came to Thailand the first time, I'd be on the subway and people would be staring. And at first I thought, oh yeah, but then that became a bit, you know, it's like, what are you looking at? I'm getting paranoid, you know.
Right.
So
Yeah.
I think making the first move, you know, is really, really incredibly brave. When I'm in Thailand and I want to speak Thai, sometimes I get really, really nervous, you know, and I think, oh God, are they going to understand me? What am I going to say, you know? And but I learned when I lived in Spain, I started speaking Spanish, and what I would do is I would write dialogues in Spanish to start practicing, you know. So I'd be, you know, going to the cafe and I'd say, you know, what would I say? I would say, quiero un café con leche, por favor. And they would say, do you like anything else? Algo más. And I would have this dialogue, you know, and it kind of gave me a lot of confidence to get out there and start, you know, speaking, you know. It's all about preparation, you know, all about preparation, you know.
Yeah.
So, I was going to say, if there's anybody watching, if they want to ask any questions, feel free to ask, you know. I'm very new to IG Live. You're actually my first IG Live
Oh, wow.
person, you know, so
what an honor.
So
That's
I'm
awesome.
very, very new to it, you know, so I can see these messages coming up, but they're going, some of them, you know, I'm kind of having to get close to the screen to see them. So if anyone has questions, then I'm more than happy to answer them, you know.
Yeah,
I see
someone here asked, let's see, give us some tips for the Toefl exam. Do you help your students prepare for exams like the Toefl or the IELTS or anything?
No, what I do is I teach university graduates to work for the airlines.
Oh, right.
You know,
Yes, I remember.
Yes, they have for some of the airlines they need a TOEIC, so they have a separate Thai teacher that will teach them the TOEIC classes, you know, and to pass the TOEIC exam, if you like, you know. But as far as the official exams go, I don't really get involved in that. It's more kind of how to prepare yourself for interviews in English and what do the airlines expect from you, kind of thing, you know. Kind of like confidence building, I guess, you know, to start talking about yourself and, you know, and this is my experience and this is what I've done and this is what I want to do and this is why I liked it, you know. So it's kind of more general conversation. What about yourself? Are you teaching into TOEFL and IELTS?
Most of my students are preparing to take the IELTS exam, but recently I got another student from Brazil who lives here in the United States now, who is preparing for the TOEFL exam. And when it comes to exams like those, I always tell my students to not be afraid of being specific. Like a lot of my students, like I'll ask them something like, so tell me about your job. And they're like, I'm an accountant.
All right, okay.
And I'm like, okay, and like, what do you do? What does that mean? What does a normal day at work look like for you? Do you like your job, etc.? And I'm trying to like teach them to kind of predict those like follow-up questions that an interviewer might ask them and just go ahead and give it in their initial answer. Because a lot of people are like really short in their responses, and I'm like, no, give me more, please.
I think that actually comes with confidence, doesn't it? I mean, I get that with my students. They'll say exactly the same as yourself. What do you do? Oh, I'm an accountant. And or what's your your greatest achievement? Oh, my greatest achievement was graduating. So what do you mean? Why was it difficult? You know, tell me more and tell me more from that, you know. So you want to kind of build them up so that I guess you don't want the interviewer to kind of keep asking you questions because they'll end up getting pretty bored themselves, you know.
Yeah, I always say that you don't want the person interviewing you to get bored or annoyed or confused. None of those things are good for the results. But yeah, I even tell my students to kind of sometimes use more dramatic language because it's more like attention getting. So instead of saying like the weather is nice, you could say, oh, this is perfect weather for going for a walk or going on a date or something. Just being like specific and like adding some like more colorful, interesting language there.
Absolutely. In Thailand, we have a phrase or a word, and it's called overacting. And and I always try and get students to kind of overact with
Mm-hmm.
their stories, you know, it kind of, and I couldn't believe it. This thing happened, you know, kind of, you know,
Mm-hmm.
even though it could be the most boring story in the world,
Right.
but if you put your kind of passion into it and
Mm-hmm.
kind of overact with it, people will kind
Mm-hmm.
of respond to that, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a difficult thing to do, you know. It comes with a lot with confidence for that, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, usually I have to practice for a while before a student like kind of catches on and starts
Uh
like
huh.
answering those questions. And I'm always like, okay, so what questions do you think I'm going to ask you according to the answer that
Uh
you
huh.
just gave? And they're like, well, probably
Oh
you're going
yeah.
to ask me this. And I'm like, okay, so answer that question. Like, there's no like wrong thing to say. Well, I guess there are, but usually they avoid those like creepy answers or anything like that. But yeah.
Uh-huh, uh-huh, uh-huh. Another thing I get asked as well, I get asked a lot on Instagram is, give me movies and series to watch. You know,
Mm-hmm.
what's your go-to movies? Because I know when I was learning Portuguese, I think I told you before, when I arrived in Portugal, I didn't know any Portuguese, and I didn't want a television, I didn't want a telephone, I didn't want a car. But then I got a small television, and I started watching a TV series, Three Men and a Baby. You know,
Mm-hmm.
and it was so easy to watch, you know, and the language was so easy, and it came up with the Portuguese subtitles, and this is where I started learning kind of, you know, everyday Portuguese, you know. Um,
Mm-hmm.
you know, what do you say to students who ask you what can I watch
Mm-hmm.
to improve?
So this is, I know some people are not going to agree with this. I almost don't even agree with it. um,
Uh-huh.
I have started telling my students to watch reality TV because
Ah.
the people on reality TV are not going to be talking about like rocket science or anything. It's just going to be like the same, like kind of predictable situation. Like this person went behind my back, and now I'm upset with them because they blah 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 blah. And it's like a little over dramatic, but also kind of predictable and stuff.
Yeah.
And I've actually recommended for my Russian student to do this, and he's now watching that stuff, and like we can talk about what happened in the episodes. Like, did you see in this episode when the person did this? And he's like, oh
Ah.
yeah. And then they will, like, my student has like brought up the fact that, hey, they actually use this vocabulary term pretty often. Like they actually
Uh-huh.
use this idiom or whatever pretty often. And I'm like, yeah, that's
Mm.
something that we say on a regular basis. Um,
Mm.
but yeah, usually I
Mm-hmm.
tell them like reality TV, or I ask them like what genre do you like in the first place? But
Yeah.
then a lot of people, I feel like the biggest default series for people to watch are Friends. Everybody
Yeah.
watches
Yeah.
Friends.
Everybody.
Everyone
Yeah.
loves Friends. But I've never really been a Friends person. I've never really been. I'm more of The Office. I like The Office a lot better.
All
But
right then.
everybody likes Friends. Um, what's the other one? Big Bang Theory
All right.
and maybe How I Met Your Mother. I think those are
Right.
the
Right.
ones
Right.
that all of my students tell me that they love, and I'm just like, oh, okay.
I saw a comment there. Someone says to watch something in your own language first, and then watch it in English. So I
Mm,
guess so you know what's going on.
mm-hmm,
Interesting, huh?
mm-hmm.
Interesting. I don't know how good that would be to kind of translate all the language, the feelings
Mm-hmm.
behind the words and stuff. But that's quite an interesting one as well.
I did that when I was watching. There's this. So you were talking about Portuguese earlier. There's this one series on Netflix
Uh
called
huh.
3%.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and the first time I watched it with I think I just watched it with the English dubs. And then the
Uh-huh.
second time I watched it was with the original audio but English subtitles. And
Uh-huh.
then the third time that I watched it was just with no subtitles, or maybe it was just with the Portuguese subtitles. And then the
Uh-huh.
fourth time, I've watched this like a ton of times because I have a
Uh-huh.
terrible memory and it's like new every time for me.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. You know, when I moved from Portugal to Spain, and I thought, right, I'll do the same thing and watch Spanish television, and I'll be able to pick up the Spanish language, you know. And oh my goodness, the Spanish language was just like one long word, and I couldn't
Oh
make head
yeah.
nor tail of it at all, you know. I
Hmm.
think they said that the Portuguese language was quite slow, but the Spanish language was so fast, you know. So I started doing that as well, looking at the subtitles and just to try and break it into word by word, you know. Especially in the
Hmm.
south of Spain, they speak so fast, you know. Um,
Hmm.
I've tried doing it with Thai television as well, but
Oh
forget
gosh,
about
I
it.
remember watching some
Oh,
Thai, some kind of Thai soap opera, and I
uh-huh.
was with a friend, and we had no idea what they were talking about, but we just started guessing what they were talking about. Like if somebody threw their hands in the air, it would just be like, "What the heck? What are you doing?" Or just like being that person's voice, and we had no idea what was going on. But it was really fun, like just guessing what they were talking about according to their body language and the context that we saw there. It was pretty interesting.
Yeah, yeah. Actually, I went in Thailand. I'm finding that certainly now I've been here a while. I'm finding that the body language is so different to what we're
Mm,
used to in the West. You
mm-hmm,
know, um,
mm-hmm.
they kind of when they're speaking a sentence, we'll nod our head, but they'll kind of nod their head at the end of a sentence. You know, and it kind of throws me off and confuses me. You know,
Yeah, mm-hmm.
so
Yeah.
it's kind of difficult, you know. And they
Mm-hmm.
as well when they speak English, the Thai language. This is something that I'm trying to put through to students where the Thai language, the syllable is at the end of the word or the stress syllable, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and so we're having to kind of move the syllables back. We were talking about
Mm-hmm.
fluency earlier, you know, to try and get them to speak a little bit smoother, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
so it's
Yeah, and
kind
it's
of relearning the kind of language, if you like, you know.
mm-hmm. Yeah, that is really tricky. Like teaching that sentence stress so that they sound a little more natural. I have one Chinese student that like when I'm trying to like get him to realize the way that your voice should go up and down because
Yeah.
usually uh gosh, how does he usually speak? I say that he like separates everything into like a syllable by itself instead of
All
kind of
right.
letting
Uh-huh.
it flow. And
Uh-huh.
that is so hard to teach because it's so like ingrained in his brain.
Ingrained, right?
It's really, really hard, and we just keep practicing. And I'm like, we're just gonna keep doing it, um, and at the very least, you'll be able to recognize the difference.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Well, of course, the Chinese language is very tonal as well, isn't it?
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
they're going to have to kind of tone their language down so it's kind of flat, if you like, you know. And
Mhm.
there's
Mhm.
a lot of Chinese here, and they're very, very loud. And I've been told it's because the language they have to kind of really stress some of
Those
the words
differences.
in their syllables as well. You know,
Mhm.
absolutely.
Mhm.
So, what's the worst? Actually, I'll ask you a question. What's the piece of advice you've heard given to a student that you've thought, oh no, please don't?
Oh.
What's the kind of what? Because usually we always hear about advice that's good. What advice have
Mhm.
you heard that's kind of like no?
Um. Let's see. You know, I can't think of anything right now, but I have heard things that I disagreed with at the time that that I heard that
Uh
advice.
huh. Uh huh.
Um, like I remember when I first started on Instagram, I was watching some other teachers that would use the student's first language in the classroom. And
Uh-huh.
like the way that I was taught to teach English was like, no, don't ever do that. That's the worst thing that you could ever do. Don't ever use the first language in the classroom. So I was
Uh-huh.
like, oh no, 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 this is totally wrong. But then I then I started learning Russian, and
Uh-huh.
I was like, no, no, no. Like if you need to just say like there's some moments when it's just like impossible to like get what that other person, like I remember one time my teacher was we were talking about like parts of the house and prepositions,
Uh-huh.
and she was like, what about that thing right there? And I was like, so like there's this right here, and I was like, what, my neighbor's house, my neighbor's car, the
Uh-huh.
tree, the sky, the grass, the fence. And I was like, no, it's right there. And I was like, I don't know. I just kept saying stuff that was right there. And she's like, the window. And I was
Oh.
like, oh my God. Instead of looking at the window, I was looking through it. And I was like,
Uh-huh.
oh my goodness, I'm sorry. I was totally, there are moments like we probably spent like 5 minutes
Uh-huh.
trying to get through that concept. And I was like, oh my goodness, you could have
Hmm.
just said it like earlier. Like, so I think that nowadays I am not so strict about that. I'm like, hey, everybody has their way of learning and teaching. You go with the thing that works best for you as long as the end
Absolutely.
result is the same.
I agree with you. I think, certainly in my classes, told don't speak English, don't speak Thai. But I think sometimes for me, I think well, two things. If I speak Thai, I know it's wrong, and I can see the students kind of laughing, at my
Hmm.
accent or I've said the word wrong. So it kind of gives them the kind of confidence to make mistakes, which
Hmm.
kind of helps. But also as well, we go through a lot of personality adjectives and personality, vocabulary, and
Hmm.
sometimes it's better, I feel, to get them to say the word in their language, and
Hmm.
once they've said that word, then tell me in English what it means,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
they kind of explain the word in English. I find that kind of helps,
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
I don't see anything wrong with them speaking their native language if it helps the situation. You're absolutely right. I
Hmm.
think.
Hmm. Yeah, I think as long as that first language doesn't become a crutch, because I
Yeah.
always tell my students, like, hey, if you actually do come to the United States and you're working with a bunch of Americans, they're probably not going to know what the word is in English or in Russian or something like that. They're just going to be like,
Uh-huh.
I don't know. I have no idea what you're talking about. And I would hate for their like job performance to suffer because they were so used to just translating something. But I mean, nowadays, like translation services are so readily available. I just try to encourage my students to at least try explaining that thing in English first, even if it takes
First.
a little bit longer than
Yeah, yeah,
it would to just say what it is in their native language.
yeah. I've had a couple of students who are really, really good in English, but their mind is working so quickly that when they're
Mm.
trying to speak, Thai comes out,
Oh
and I
yeah.
have to say to them, slow down, slow your brain down, please, and I have to
Mhm.
pull them right back.
Mhm.
Um, mm. What do you think of technology for learning languages?
I think that it's definitely a tool that, I mean, it's 2019. I think that if you are learning, if you're still only learning with books and like physical dictionaries, that's okay. And
Mm,
I have a whole library right here of like stuff that I use just when I actually just want to read something. But I do think
mm-hmm.
it is pretty necessary to recognize that you can get a like this physical dictionary that I have right here is not going to give me the actual pronunciation. Like I won't be able to hear it.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
might be able to look at the phonetic transcription or something like that, but technology is like I feel like we are so fortunate to have it, and we need to take advantage of how we can use it.
Absolutely right. I wish I had this technology, 15 years ago, when I was
Hmm.
learning
Yeah.
languages. It was
I
so
don't know how
helped so
people
much.
did it before. Yeah.
Have you seen those new things? Those, I don't know if they're dictaphones or something. You speak into it and it'll automatically translate. I forgot
Yeah.
that.
Uh-huh.
That's
Yeah,
like
that
the
is
future.
crazy.
That's like the future
Hmm.
has arrived. It's crazy,
Hmm. That is
It's
so
crazy.
neat. I don't know. I still would be. Whenever my students tell me about that stuff, I'm like, okay, but remember that Google Translate still makes plenty of mistakes, and sometimes they're like very serious mistakes. And I'm like, just be careful
Yeah, yeah,
with the
yeah.
translations and stuff.
I know. On Facebook, I don't know so much now. I don't use it that much, but you would click translate on Facebook, and it would come up with the translation from Thai into English, and it
Hmm.
would be something, the horse jumped over the moon or something, totally
Yes.
irrelevant to what the actual sentence would mean. So
Right. It just doesn't make any sense. Uh-huh.
you've got to be very, very careful with it. You know.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah,
Although
that is.
one thing that's quite good actually is this Google, what is it, the Amazon Alexa.
Mhm.
I've been looking at this recently, and they've got language courses where you actually speak into it, and if you get it correct, then it moves on to the next thing.
Right.
I don't,
Hmm.
have you seen anything like
I
that
think
before?
I've seen
Have you seen
some
anything?
stuff like that. There are a few different applications that use that kind of that concept of like the voice recognition software. I think that's pretty neat. I think that's really cool. All my students always tell me that the ultimate test is whether or not Siri can understand what they're saying.
That's a good point, actually. I like that one. Yeah, there was a Japanese course on it that I started practicing with, and I got two vocabulary correct, so I was very, very chuffed with
Mm,
myself. But
nice. That is really cool.
I get some students as well to go on to Google Translate if they've typed something and kind of copy and paste from English to English and click speak, and then
Mm.
it can see if there's any spelling mistakes. It kind of technology
Yeah,
that
you
wise
told me
is
about
quite
that
good.
earlier, and I thought that I had never thought of that before.
Mm.
Um, yeah, yeah, seeing what Google Translate does sometimes is really interesting. Sometimes I just type stuff into Google Translate to hear the funny robot voice. And I type like really vulgar stuff, but then I hear this robot talking. It's pretty funny.
That's kind of like the olden days when you would look up the dictionary for the vulgar stuff. Now you're doing it on
Mm-hmm,
on
mm-hmm.
on Google Translate. You know.
Yeah, I definitely think people still do that. People, I rem once I went to Colombia, and I tell all my students this, and uh, the people found out that I was American, and they're like,
Uh
"Oh,
huh.
okay, okay, hold on, just a second." And then, like with as much dedication as they could muster, they just said like this super vulgar word, and I was like, like I don't know, like what do you? I'm not sure what you want me to like. How do you want me to respond to this? And like, did I say it right? And I'm like, yes,
Yeah.
I guess so.
It's like a big game for them. It's like a big
Yeah.
game. It's like an achievement, if you like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The
Wait,
native speaker understood my vulgarity. Perfect.
well, I must admit, when I was learning Thai at the beginning, I found one Thai vulgar word that I thought that's quite interesting.
Mm,
I haven't heard that many of them in Thai, actually, to be honest. It's
mm,
kind of
mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't
they,
remember looking up any curse words while I was there, but I do think that students should learn those words for at the very least so that they can understand if somebody is talking crap about them.
absolutely. There's a guy on Instagram. I don't know if you know the Irish guy, Irish teacher. He puts up some of these words. It's quite interesting. At first it's quite funny, and then you think, well, yeah, actually it's quite important. It's part of
Mm-hmm.
everyday language. Especially if you're out in that part.
Right. Yeah, I want to know if and when I need to be offended about something.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly, exactly. You know, exactly. So, Chris, we're coming to the end of this. I think. You know, is there
Hmm.
anything you want to give a message to everyone? If you could put a message on any of your Instagram posts to encourage students, what would you say?
Oh, to encourage students. Hmm. I would say your English isn't gonna get better unless you use it. Like, I guess use it or lose it, honestly. A lot of
Absolutely.
people always ask me, like, what can I do to improve my English? And I'm like, okay, so how often did you speak or use English this week? And they're like, oh, I watched something 2 weeks ago, and I'm like, okay,
Mm.
but that's not enough. Like, you have to use it constantly, or as much as you can.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. Practice makes perfect, right?
Yeah,
You know.
yeah. As my dad said, like my dad would always say, um, it's not that practice makes perfect, but perfect practice makes perfect. And by that he meant like you have to like make the environment as authentic as possible before
Mm.
you go into that thing. So like for my students, I'm like, okay, look, if there's a time limit, we need to adhere to that time limit when we're practicing so that you know what
Yeah,
to
yeah.
expect. So
Perfect.
you, yeah, exactly, perfect. Practice perfect.
Perfect. Excellent. Excellent. Okay, Chris. It's been a pleasure speaking to you. Nice to meet you.
Yeah, I
And
have really enjoyed this so much. Yeah,
yeah, me too.
I don't always exactly vibe with everybody. Like sometimes I feel like I have to like kind of be fake about it, like, oh wow,
Yeah,
that's
force
really
it. Yeah,
interesting or something. But
yeah,
this
yeah.
time I didn't feel like that. That was really cool. I'm
Yeah,
really happy that my followers got to meet you today, and that I
yeah.
got
And if any
to
of my,
continue talking to you.
absolutely, and if any of my followers are there, then please follow Chris as well. You know,
Likewise.
I'll leave up this IG live for anyone who wants to have a look at it later. Okay.
Perfect. Awesome.
Okay, my friend. Lovely to see you,
Nice
and
seeing you too.
hopefully we'll catch up soon.
All right, man. Enjoy the rest of
All
your
right, man.
evening and have a great week.
Have a great day yourself, Chris. Take care now.
Thanks. All right. See you.
Cheers. Cheers, buddy. Bye bye.
Bye.